and they really fucking matter. There's like 4 things that matter, and they really fucking matter. I mean, objectively, I mean, you should care, especially you, if you thought about it for 5 fucking minutes.
Welcome to episode 58 of the Outer Voices podcast. We are your hosts, Keem and Esme.
Yay!
And with the yay.
I don't know how that became a thing that I do every episode, but it is. Whatever.
We're settling into things, you know. We hope everybody's doing well today. We are here on time again because it's summertime and we can record.
Yeah.
We have a great guest. We are welcoming back again. They have been on our show before. They have given us some really awesome music. They continue to make really awesome music. So in our topic/interview section later, we're going to be interviewing Ash Leon or Leon, depending on where you find him. And
it's
so
Ash Leon.
You guys, it's going to be awesome. Ash is always great to have on. This has been another. We always talk about this. The news is always just wild and crazy. This past week, we've had the wiping of Roseanne Barr.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't call because if there's anything that can get you, you can be as racist and as transphobic and homophobic as you want. But when you are very openly racist and very clearly racist, the mainstream media will not put up with you.
Yeah.
So to all you racists out there, keep your shit low key. Or you know what? Don't be assholes.
Stop being racist.
Yeah. But if you can't handle not being racist, keep your shit on the low. For fuck's sake.
People can hear you.
Yeah. And freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences.
Yes.
So learn that. It's been very interesting to me watching that whole thing unfold because and I'm not even calling them white people or white conservatives. You're Trump supporters because they're a whole different whatever to themselves. All up in a huff. We're all up in a huff. Fuck. About it and you should recognize her free speech, America.
She can say whatever the fuck she wants to, but that doesn't mean that we have to let her do it and still be a public figure.
Right. And also, the company she works for doesn't have to let her say shit.
Yep.
Because freedom of speech only applies to government actors.
Right. Interestingly, all of the people who are pissed off about Roseanne Barr's free speech are the same ones who continually claim that football players have no right to protest because that's not what they're paid for.
How did you know I was going to say that?
Because I know you a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. It's almost like there's some kind of double standard.
What?
We're an organization where most of the employees and most of the ones making the stand are African American and making a stand against, police brutality and just human rights and for human rights in general. It's seen as bad, but a white woman who is supportive of a tyrannical fascist Trump administration, calling a black woman a monkey is okay. I wonder why that is. If this was a video podcast, you guys would have enjoyed the look on my face just then. But yeah, that's been interesting. We've had rap beefs this week, and we've had all kind of really fun things. We had Ivanka Trump being called a cunt.
And then
Which-
everybody being mad about it, despite still being Ted Nugent supporters. Ted Nugent, who famously called Hillary Clinton a cunt. Whatever.
Right. And honestly, I think it's more offensive to cunts because cunts don't need that type of negativity in
That's
their
what I'm
lives.
saying. Cunts are great.
I love cunts.
Anyway.
We digress. But we're going to move into our news stories of the week.
Yes.
Since we're not segueing into any topics or anything, who wants to go first?
Mine is actually lighthearted. I changed my, kind of. It's not super serious.
Mine is probably going to be lighthearted because I'm going to make fun of it.
I'm going to make fun of mine too.
I'll do mine first.
Go first.
So this is a news story out of Alabama, and you know it's going to be good when it's coming out of Alabama. Huntsville, Alabama. An Alabama man is suing the state of Alabama over a 153-year-old document he claims entitles him to own several black individuals and their descendants. Hank Wyatt, 53, is suing the state of Alabama because in his great-great-grandfather's will, he had his family had been giving the property rights to 4 Negro prisoners from the state of Alabama in 1865. Mm-hmm. So you might wonder, hey, Rakeem, 1865, wasn't slavery made illegal around that time? And the reply is, yes, around that time, slavery was made illegal. And Rakeem, you would say, isn't slavery now also illegal and you can't own people and descendants? No, because the 13th Amendment has a loophole, everyone. These 4 individuals were prisoners. Mm-hmm. In the 13th Amendment, prisoners can be enslaved. Yes. So, this man is suing the state of Alabama to honor his grandfather's will. And the only reason he has a case is because of that loophole in the 13th Amendment.
Though, despite that loophole, I'm fairly certain that you can't hold somebody's descendants, like you can't imprison somebody's descendants for the crimes that they committed, right?
Aha! So, this, and see, he's a sly devil. His lawyer's sly. Anyway, and this, I will say, as fucked up as this is a brilliant lawyer. This is a brilliant lawyer because this lawyer knows his stuff. The guy's not suing. The guy's not suing to own these people. He's suing for compensation for if he owned them. He wants to get paid for those 4 prisoners that his grandfather never received, and the revenue that them and their descendants would have generated. According to the lawyer, my client's demands clearly comply with the current federal laws of the state of Alabama, and the state of Alabama has the obligation of compensating my client for refusing to honor this contract. So, state of Alabama made a deal with his grandfather. They breached their contract because they did. It's a breach of contract case, which kind of does entitle him to payment entitle him to his benefit of the bargain, to his payment of what would have been generated, or what the value of would have been lost, quote unquote, if his family would have been given these prisoners. That is insane. But
It is insane.
it's insane, but legally it's sound. And that's, I think, besides the racial, because I mean, of course, it speaks to the racial history of things, and the racial history of the Constitution and the amendments and all this stuff, all this clear stuff. But it speaks to the absolute craziness that is our legal systems. Because there are so many little things that allow people to get away with the most ridiculous fucking shit. Like this random 53-year-old Alabama dude is probably going to get some money from the state of Alabama. Probably.
This is ridiculous.
For this ridiculous contract they made in 1865. Though it will be interesting to see how that plays out with the political and legal things that were happening at the time, with ending the Civil War and Reconstruction and reintegrating into the Union. But it's man, like, guys, there are so many things that people can sue for that are absolutely ridiculous. That we know are absolutely ridiculous, but they have valid cases. Mm-hmm. It's kind of reminds me of the quote unquote Nazis that are suing people currently for ruining their lives after they were marching and being violent towards those people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and in those cases, they're probably not going to win, but because our legal systems are so weird, they have cases against those people. That's the one thing. The one thing I've begun to learn in law school is, and the more and more I dig into it, is, man, our legal system is fucking messed up. It's crazy. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And people just kind of do whatever the fuck they want. And it blows my mind, but it's the only thing we have. And you just got to know how to work it. So to our listeners, one of the best things you can do is you find some kind of legal database or somewhere in your life and just go read some shit. Learn how to work the system right quick. Just learn how to work the system. Because it's messed up. It's crazy. But it could benefit you. Because obviously this ridiculous loophole has benefited this ridiculous man with this ridiculous claim. So that's my short little news story.
Yeah, that is.
I need to go make sure. I need to go make sure somebody doesn't own me from some bullshit ass contract from years ago.
Right, but it's not a matter of you're not that's not going to affect you at all, but they might get money. That's some bullshit. That's some bullshit.
And it's, before you go on, it's another just weird thing to me is the U.S. government still has not compensated, which it certainly fucking should, because it's compensated so many other groups for what the U.S. government has done to them.
Yeah.
But the U.S. government has not even dreamed about compensating African Americans for the against them.
Yes.
From slavery onward to today, not even a contemplation.
Mm-hmm.
However, this man is probably going to be compensated for his grandfather's perceived loss of property for owning black people.
Yeah.
And that is the audacity of that.
Yeah.
But, you know what? Fuck the government. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
So speaking of the government, the head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, is under fire this week. What
did Scotty P do?
So he's under investigation, and he's been under investigation several times since he's been in that position, for possible misuse of public funds. And that investigation has been dragged up again because it came to light this week that recently his office approved a payment of $3,230 to a store in Washington called the Tiny Jewel Box. And $1,560 of that was for 12 of one item. What item was it, Keem?
I have no idea.
$1,560 to buy 12 customized fountain pens.
I didn't know you worked for Scott Pruitt.
I do not work for Scott Pruitt. The joke being that I have a huge fountain pen, or it's not huge yet, it's on its way. I have a fountain pen collection because I'm a huge geek, whatever. But yeah, so this week, a top staffer or a top aide at the EPA approved via email an order for $3,230, $1,560 of which was for 12 customized fountain pens, and the remaining $670 appears to be for personalized journals. Ostensibly, these were to be gifts to be given out to people through the course of normal business dealings for the EPA, right? Ceremonial things and gifts and whatnot, which, I mean, is a thing that happens, right? The EPA head under Obama did the same thing. Like offices all over the government do this kind of thing. Have special whatevers with this. It has these pens apparently have the EPA seal on them, whatever, right? But this is just another in a long line of expenditures that is questionable for this office, right? Under Scott Pruitt's head of the EPA. This is apparently just the next in a long line. As recent, what are you laughing at?
Sorry, that was a sneeze.
Oh, that's a sneeze. Fairly recently, there was actually a change in the hierarchy of how things are supposed to be handled. That any expense over $5,000 had to be approved by several agency officials before it would be done. But because this was under $5,000, only one person was able to approve that expenditure. And it's just the next in this line of like questionable spending that has been going on.
It's all about that flash. Like,
yeah,
it's this administration. Like you can tell it's like being run by a reality, like an entertainer.
Yes.
Because so much is just like all flash. Like you want to make you want to make a big show. You want to have these fancy fountain pens, and fancy journals. You know, you want to look real good when it comes to people.
Yep.
It's amazing. But I mean, they got some somebody's out here writing real fucking fancy. I mean, I thought I was writing fancy with the pen you gave me in class. Everybody looked at me, it's like, oh, everybody come to me, it's like, oh, you got a fancy, like, real lawyer pen.
And I am trying my damnedest to figure out what exactly pen this was. What pen? Because I'm actually extremely curious, like, what pen this was. They were silver and they were customized, which means that, like, they could have upcharged a lot on that, which means that these were probably not that great a fountain pen. I don't know.
I love how you're like hold on, let me
I'm
make sure
really
this.
curious. I want to know
let-
what pen this was.
Like, let me make sure this is worth it.
Let me consult Reddit.
like down the fountain pen rabbit hole. Like this is what brings down the Trump administration. It's not the lies. It's not the human rights violations. It's not the scandals. It's the fucking fountain pens.
I mean, no, like, I'm not more outraged about this than I am.
No. What I'm saying is, this should be it. Like, I want the history. Like, I want this to be what takes down the Trump administration. That would be like, I want that to be the footnote in history.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be incredible. Just imagine it's like someone out there, like one of our listeners hears this and they investigate the story, and through some like crazy investigation they discover some, like, a deep web of intrigue and corruption that takes down the Trump administration. And then it traces back to this podcast.
Back to this podcast. This is not going to trace back to this podcast. I'm not breaking this news by any means.
I know, but the person that's going to hear this is going to go on to do the historical stuff, and they're going to credit hearing it on the show. Kind of like Hannibal Buress and Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Anyway, I am not able to dig out exactly what pen this was, unfortunately.
So would you say you think they did not make the right decision?
Okay, this podcast is done. Bye.
It just started. We have a whole interview to do.
Nah. Anyway, so that's my news for the week.
Well, I think the most important part of that news story is that, guys, stationery is very important.
Stationery is very important.
And our government officials should only use and give the best.
That's my concern, though, is that probably wasn't the best. He probably paid a premium on it for no damn reason. Sorry. Like, if you're going to spend $130 on a fucking fountain pen, at least make it worth it. That's what I'm saying.
I love the outrage.
That's just me.
If you're gonna be corrupt and use this money.
Right. Like, at least make it work for you.
Do it right, damn it.
Right. Jesus.
Oh my God.
You're welcome.
That tickled me. That, Jesus. This. Well, guys, we're going to keep this podcast from being stationary.
Oh my God.
And hopefully the our next interview will keep you pensive.
No, that was a stretch.
Yeah, it was. But
you should feel bad.
I tried. Someone, we need a soundboard. We need a soundboard so I can add in applause for my puns.
Nope.
Somebody needs
Nope.
to clap for me. Comedy is so hard, guys. I work so hard on my puns, and I just want to be appreciated.
Nope.
Anyway, guys, we're going to move on into our interview section after some music from Ash. Enjoy.
I wrote this letter to my future self like, how are you doing? How is the road life? Where are you headed? Was there anything left when you turned right? At night I still sleep fighting boxing monsters in the parasol, reaching out in dark rooms and no one's there at all. Was it all in my head? Have you awoke from the strife? Do you still have pains in your back? Flashback to being jabbed with a knife, heart colder than Jon Snow getting stabbed in the night. It's hard to forget and harder to live. It's easy to run and easy to numb. I stand feeling dumb, facing cowards with guns. The other day I was stressing, but life came through with some lessons. Now I'm feeling great, time to meditate and celebrate all these new blessings. But don't pray for me, pray for the ones you really wanna see my defeat. All I ever did was give good energy, so tell me why they mad at me. I'm wishing everybody love and peace. Call me fast to stampede. Sheesh, get the Febreze. These haters, they stink. See what I mean? I'm living my dream. Why they so mean? They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. They love to hate you and they hate to love you. Why they so mean?
And welcome back, everyone. We are welcoming back to the show one of our guests we've had on earlier, one of our favorite guests, one of our favorite musicians. We had their music on the show before. Welcome back to the show, Ash.
Hey, it's good to hear you guys again.
Yay. Welcome.
It's great to have you back. So, enough about us. So, Ash, how about you let our listeners know what you've been working on since the last time we talked to you?
Let's see. Since the last time we've spoken, I have completed about 4 projects. I have one that I'm going to be releasing this month. Man, it's been a lot. It's been a wild journey. I even had a couple shows in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I saw that.
So there's been a lot happening, but most importantly, I have a ton of new content on the way. That's what I'm excited about.
Yes, see, that's what we like to hear. We like to hear this that more music is coming out because we need more music in our lives.
Yes.
I will say I've recently heard Ash's latest release, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
That's shoot. Now I'm blanking on the name of it. What's the name of it?
It's called Big Dipper Style.
That's right. Those of you who are regular listeners to the show heard it last week on the show, and you're going to hear it again this week because it's awesome.
Thank you. There was a period where I was deeply inspired by astrophysics and astronomy. And I read a ton of books, watched some documentaries, and a lot of that just bled into my music. And that's what I wrote about. And especially because I guess from like a mental health perspective, sometimes I feel like I'm alone floating in a dark space. And so I just parallel that with actual outer space. That's where I've been at.
Just give us a second.
No, we're good.
Okay, we're good. All right.
Every
yeah,
week.
no,
It happens every week.
it happens every week. But no, that's awesome. When it comes to like astrophysics and stuff, a lot of people don't realize black folks have a connection to that. Like, and especially when especially when you're feeling alien, that can really speak to like just speak to you and produce some like incredible stuff.
Yeah, that's how it feels. Also, shout out to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Who is a badass?
Truly, and pretty much watching and reading anything that he's been a part of has like exponentially made me smarter, or at least I guess microwaved a lot of that stuff for me so that I could digest it and use it as a muse.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is very good at taking some what would normally seem to be high concepts and making them very easy to understand. And
I think I need to like pay attention more to the things that he's putting out, his books and his videos and things, because I have an extremely hard time making any kind of sense about anything on that scale. Astrophysics, astronomy, like none of that. It all breaks my brain a little bit. But that's just me.
yeah, no, definitely go check Neil's stuff out. Cosmos is awesome.
That's what I was just going to recommend. That's a great docuseries.
Yeah, Cosmos is incredible. Also, Neil deGrasse Tyson is the only popular scientist that's ever been involved in a rap beef. So there's that.
Oh yeah, he got into it with B.O.B. about flat Earth, which I myself have also engaged with some flat earthers, and they're pretty interesting.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense because if you listen to some of their arguments don't make sense. Like I had a person ask me, he asked me if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, how come we're not flying off of it? It was wild.
Gravity. There's gravity.
I mentioned that, and then he says, and I don't mean to make light of people who don't understand or have misfacts. It was just I don't know. I was just put off, or I couldn't even argue with him because he was just intense about it. And he just asked me. He said, "Well, if gravity is a thing, then you mean to tell me I have 250 pounds of pressure on me?" And also, interestingly about this person, he knew who Copernicus was, so it's not like he didn't have some sense of science. He just, I don't know, he just didn't care, I guess.
Just chooses to ignore it.
But for anyone who's listening, we don't always know everything, and science is so broad. I would say that I definitely encourage people to ask questions even if you feel like it's a silly question, because you never know what you may learn.
Right.
And that's one thing I did appreciate about this person, is that at least he was asking me,
Right.
some questions.
That's a big issue with really anyone. It's like anyone with any like mindset where they think they know everything about a specific subject and they don't ever ask questions. So when confronted about what they're thinking, they retreat and go, "I'm not going to listen to anything else." But if you don't know, just ask questions. That goes with anything. Just ask. But like actually on the B.O.B. released a song recently. Actually, probably a couple months ago, and like I was listening to it, and I was like, I'm enjoying it. The music behind this really good, and then I started getting into the lyrics, and I was just like, I can't do it. Because
Yeah.
it was, yeah,
He
it was,
has some interesting ideologies.
The bones don't turn, like, I remember the lines, bones don't turn the oil, and my ancestors were never on slave ships.
Again, this is why I say, it's important to ask questions. We don't know everything. Also, some of his ideologies align with a lot of those. I call them photeps.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use this as a segue into saying Happy Pride Month to you guys.
Yay!
Yeah.
A lot of their ideologies tend to be very homophobic and transphobic. But yeah, I just want people to read more, or not even to read more. Really, I think that maybe people should share more. I've never been a fan of the whole Google it type of response, because like flat earthers Google things all the time and they don't ever seem to pull up any 8th grade science lessons.
Yeah, that's the trick, is Googling something means that you're more likely to only find things that confirm what you already believe, right? Like Googling anything will give you a number of hits on both sides of it, but you're going to click on the ones that look like the things that you already think. Rather than, I don't ever Google a thing and then click on something that I look at and go, wow, that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever say, oh, I should read this thing because I looked at it and said, oh, that's wrong. But
It's the thing with all that is discernment. You got to learn to discern.
mm-hmm.
You got to be able to look at stuff and go, okay, this makes sense. Does this make sense? Should this make sense? Instead of just, going with what you see.
Yeah.
Because, not everything you see is real. It's fake news. Fake news, as some people's president would say.
Ugh.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, and I think that is a problem on both sides, right? Like that's a problem for everybody right now, is that we don't take the time to look at any claim that we're given and say, okay, like, first off, does this fit with what I think reality is? Second off, who agrees with this statement and who disagrees with this statement, right? Like if the people that agree with a statement that the earth is flat is a bunch of random people on the internet, and the statement that the earth is a sphere or approximately spherical is a whole bunch of fucking scientists, right? Who not it's not, the weight is not the same on either side, but you don't know that until you look at it, I guess. I don't know. The people that I have no respect for, though, are the ones who who are presented with like evidence that challenges the thing that they think is true, and then say, well, your evidence is wrong because it contradicts this belief I have, or your evidence is wrong because
Right.
obviously this thing that I think is right. Like, those people I have no respect for. If you refuse to even consider the fact that somebody might have evidence that goes against what you think is reality, and so you flatly dismiss it on the face of it, I don't have any respect for those people.
Mm-hmm.
But
Very true.
Yeah, that can be a very dangerous perspective to hold, and I tend to personally not engage with those types of individuals online on social media, because that's draining. That's a lot of labor.
yeah. And I mean, that gets into, though, like, you said that you're not a fan of the just Google it thing, like, culture that's been coming up. And part of that, though, like, part of the reason that is because educating somebody is labor. And if you're dealing with science stuff, it's less emotional labor, but it is still labor. Like, to say, okay, well, here's this carefully curated list of sources of data that contradict that you should consider about this topic, right? Like, that is still a lot of work, and not everybody has the capacity for that kind of work.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand that. I know how exhausting it can be, especially if you spend a great deal of time invested into that.
Mm-hmm.
I just prefer people to be honest instead of dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like in the context of a situation where you're not dealing with someone who's being deliberately obtuse, who honestly just doesn't know, I wouldn't think that anyone would want to be dismissive. Like, just go Google it. Because honestly, if it were that easy for them or that simple, they probably would have.
Yeah. I mean, they might be like me and have literally everything that comes up about space. Just like, I cannot wrap my brain around it. I mean, basic, like, really basic stuff I feel like I've got a hold of. When you start talking about anything complex that has to do with space, I'm just like, I shut down. I'm like, I can't do this. It's too much. Like, I don't know. I can understand a lot of complicated things, but space fucks me up.
See, you know what your real problem is? You didn't watch enough Bill Nye the Science Guy growing up.
That's possible.
Bill Nye got me on space, stuff and just science stuff real early.
Yeah, we only watched Bill Nye when our teacher didn't plan anything for science that week.
Well, I watched Bill Nye all the time because I was poor and we had antenna television.
Nice.
So we got 3 channels, and PBS was the clearest.
That's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, we got 3 channels, and my parents kept the remote. So what we watched was whatever my parents wanted to watch.
See, this is why I'm glad I grew up in the house where the children, the children outnumbered the parent. So she gave us the remotes.
Oh, we outnumbered my parents too. There were 3 of us and 2 of them.
Yeah, but we were 3-1.
Yeah, that's fair.
And my sisters were old.
That is true. So we were all small. My brother and sister and I are all within 3 years of each other.
See, that's what. So, sorry.
That was a fun tangent.
That was a fun tangent. So, as there's been some things that have been going on recently in the music world that I would really like to ask you about your opinions on.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the latest, the Pusha T and Drake beef that's been going on, because I usually don't like even follow like rap beefs or anything, but this one just kind of, man, it took me to a different place.
I mean, it's definitely been a
Man,
while since we've had anything this intense.
yeah,
Came right on time before the summer.
yeah, it's interesting. This is going to like talk to another thing I was going to ask later. It's very interesting that this is stirred up right as Kanye's stuff is getting released as well.
This was definitely planned,
Yeah.
and Drake wasn't in on the plan. And you know, it's funny because last month when Kanye was doing all that stuff on Twitter, generating all that controversy, I said that I feel he's doing this because he chose the absolute worst time to do an album rollout, because Drake's album, I think it comes out next week on the 8th. And before this beef saga, Drake was heading into his album release on the momentum of God's Plan, which is 7 times platinum. And, you know, he had that huge act of philanthropy. And then he released Nice for What, which is pretty much like the Black Femme anthem of the summer, really anyone. And so, like, Drake had these things going, and meanwhile, you have the antithesis of that, Kanye, publicly supporting President Trump, wearing MAGA hats. And I said that, you know, he probably feels he needs to do these things to compete with Drake, and it's going to backfire. And then I guess they devised another plan, a better plan, and it seems to be working.
See, that's the thing with Kanye is, and I was actually like trying to show this to people back when all that stuff was happening, is that every time Kanye releases a new album, new music, there is some controversy stirred up around him. It's like clockwork. Like right before it happens, there's going to be some kind of controversy he's involved in, because he's gotten the very clear notion that controversy sells. You're going to,
it does.
yeah, like you're going to get attention on your music no matter what if people are already talking about you. And like you were saying, I think that, however, it's a weird environment to, like, I think he went into it like, okay, I'm going to go and, you know, make these statements and do whatever and get controversy stirred up, and people are going to listen to my music. But our society right now, the stuff he was doing was more likely to get you, like, knocked off everybody's listen list than not. Because, I mean, as we just say, Trump's America is very volatile. And,
Yep, sure, yeah.
And people are, but because everything is so tense, you're more likely to just get straight up canceled and gotten rid of. I mean, look at Roseanne. Like, gone. She's wiped. And I think, so when he went to stir up the controversy and stuff, it was like, oh shit, this is not working out as I had planned it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stir the pot elsewhere and like focus some of this attention, and what the market competition right now. Let's dull it down a bit. Let's open up me a pathway, and it worked out perfectly. I mean,
which I take exception to.
Yep.
I'm actually disappointed because most of what Pusha T had to say in Story of Adidon was gossip. You know, the worst of it were allegations, nothing that's exactly been confirmed. And I thought it was interesting that more people were focused on that aspect of it than the identity of Pusha T as a whole, which I feel is more problematic than whether or not Drake has a secret child, or even the blackface thing, which, you know, as a light-skinned black individual, like, there's no way that I'd ever do blackface. Like, I don't care that the message is supposed to be socio-political. That's just not a good idea, because it inadvertently reinforces a lot of anti-blackness. So, like, I'm not going to make a pass about that for Drake. But I will say that I don't like the way that cancel culture handles skeletons, because I do believe, you know, if you dig something back up, I think that's a moment to really evaluate whether or not that person has grown and evolved since what you dug up, you know, out of the closet. And back to Pusha T, and I said this on my on Facebook. This is a guy who's in his 40s that's still bragging about selling crack to poor black youth and poor black people. So I just don't see how he can have the moral high ground, or how anyone could rally around him, especially in spaces where they say that people don't care about black women, which is a valid, vicious statement. And it's like this rapper who glorifies selling crack is exploiting the death of a very famous black woman icon that died because of substance abuse. And not only that, but his Trump-supporting boss paid $85,000 for it. Like, to me, that is the more sinister person in this dynamic of rap beef. But he's seemingly gotten away with that, and Drake is the clock is ticking for him right now. So
that's one of the things with that, like I said, the outrage and cancel culture. It's never about what's actually happening, and it's about being mad about something. And the easiest thing for people to do is to go back into someone's past, pick out something, whether it be true or not, pick out something and go, look, they're bad. So it doesn't matter what is happening now. It's, hey, this says this person is something they're not. And this is an issue I found with call out culture. And like, once again, your canceling culture as it is, because people never look at the now. They never look at if somebody has grown, if someone has made mistakes in the past and are trying to correct them and such. That's never what anybody thinks about. They go, this person's done this, that's it. And that's not how life works. Like, people don't stay the same. Everybody changes. Everybody grows. You need to look at what's happening now and determine what's going on instead of making judgment choices for someone else, by the way. And also, I always say this: everybody's garbage.
You do say that a lot.
Everybody's trash. Every human being's trash. But it's how you handle that. It's how you deal with it, and the fact, and if you're doing something to correct it, that's important. But yeah, like, this whole mess is, like I said, I usually don't follow, like I said, rap beefs. The last rap beef I followed, truly, I was a child, and that was Biggie and Tupac. Because
that was a long time ago. We were getting up there.
I was yeah. Like I said, I was a child. That was, and everyone, like, back then, that was like that was like it was said before, it was like the Negro version of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, it was. The Big E and Pac beef was real, yo. But I just don't follow now. This is the first time to me that like there was even things going on of interest. Mostly because, like I said, I knew stuff that was going on with Kanye and all that stuff, which was ridiculous. And I actually listened to Kanye's release stuff today, and not gonna say I didn't like it because I did, but also Kanye needs help. Like,
Kanye's been very vocal about that. Even on his last album, he rapped about the fact that not only was he prescribed Lexapro, which has like severe side effects, like adverse side effects, he had been struggling to find a therapist that actually wants to do their job. He rapped about the fact that when he would go in for his sessions, his therapist would try to pander their son's mixtape to Kanye. And then he went on to rap about how he remembers listening to it and the person was rapping about how their friend died texting and driving, and Kanye was speeding down Mulholland Drive on a cocktail mix of his antidepressants and I think maybe like Molly and some other alcohol, doing 90 down that highway. And he rapped this on The Life of Pablo, and like no one really
paid attention,
said anything about it.
And that's something I actually want to touch on, is that also the way our culture is right now, and the way even like we listen to music, we oftentimes just don't see the things that are happening. A lot of musicians are bearing their soul, bearing their issues and their problems in their music, but the audience doesn't hear it. And like I said, like with Kanye's case, like I was listening to it, and even like I said on Life of Pablo, and I was just like, this dude, this guy, he's going down in a dark place of just like bad mental health. Like it's very clear. But as far as the public's concerned, he's just, for lack of a better word, crazy, quote unquote. And that's rough. Mm-hmm. Like, speaking as someone who deals with mental illness himself, and who has seen how, especially in the Black community, how we observe and treat mental illness, which isn't good. It's like I said with Kanye, it's not good. It's not heartening to. It's very disheartening to see like that happening. And like there are other musicians too that I was just like, these people are going through a lot. What's the guy? I don't know how to say it. The XXX10.
Oh, Tentacion.
Yeah. I was listening to like some of their stuff like not too long ago. I was just like, this person's going through something.
Can I just touch on him for a second?
Go for it.
All right, so I personally wasn't really a fan of what Spotify did. I understand why they did what they did, but I wasn't a fan of them doing that to him in particular.
Would you mind telling me like what they did?
Yeah. 'Cause
All right.
I don't have any
Spot-
idea.
Spotify decided that they're going to remove artists who I think have been maybe accused, is the language that they use, of like hate crimes or violence against women, or basically extremely problematic. And they got rid of R. Kelly. They booted him, but then they threw X in there. And now, don't get me wrong, X has like very serious allegations against him. When this kid first like popped up on the scene, when he was 17, he had to spend a little while in jail because allegedly he kidnapped his pregnant. First of all, this trigger warning for anyone listening, but he kidnapped his pregnant girlfriend and like physically hurt her. And now there was a lot of murkiness surrounding that situation. A lot of weird back and forth about what was and what wasn't. He hadn't been charged or anything like that. And I remember watching like his very first interview, and he was 17 at the time. And like he spends 30 minutes just talking about how violent he was growing up, and how he'd get into all these fights. And it's just really awful. And I remember watching that and thinking like, man, where's his publicist? Why is no one telling this kid, like, if you're going to say that you're innocent, like, this isn't the way to prove that. You don't go into an interview boasting about how violent you were.
Right.
And that was 3 years ago. And in the 3 years since that drama, he hasn't, I mean, there have been some things that have popped up here and there, but for the most part, he's simmered down. He's put his energy into doing more positive things, meaningful things. And he's been all right. And so I just felt like it was a bit weird for them to target him and not some of the other rappers that are actually like actively not good people.
Yeah.
There's no allegation, like they're actually like
I was just gonna say, like, I don't see why they haven't removed someone like Chris Brown if this is what they're doing.
Him, Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah, Tekashi 6ix9ine
is another one that has a weird rap sheet. Kodak Black is another one.
There are some artists that continue to do very ridiculous things and are very unapologetic about it.
Which brings us back to the cancel culture thing, because that's how I gauge the temperature of situations. I look at artists and what they're accused of, and if it's not something damning, like a sexual assault crime, then like I look at their character and I evaluate whether or not there's been growth. You know, have they unpacked, or are they consistently doing the same thing? And some of those names you mentioned, they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel maybe they should be reprimanded for that. But I don't feel, if someone is making an honest change, and they haven't, I don't know, I don't want to say that's cutting it too close, but I'll just leave it at that. If we're not talking about like a serious crime here, and like they've made changes personally, I feel like let these people be. And I know that was a very serious crime. It's such a vague thing, but I guess my implication on that, to give more context, would be like, I'm not talking about people who have sexually assaulted others, or think that hate crimes are okay, or racist. None of them. They got to go. Get them out of here. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I can see a person who, comes out and they don't understand how this gender thing works, and so they start out misgendering and calling women, females, like I can see giving them like a brief period to grow. But then if they're like still doing it, nah, get them out of here. They gotta go. If that gives more context to what I mean.
I would be very interested to see Spotify's metrics on their judgment of who to play on their platform, and like what qualifies someone to be removed. Because like I said before, everyone's trash.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wonder really what metrics they're using, because I need to see who else they're removing from their platform, because there are currently, from what I've heard, and it may just be from what I've heard so far, and it may just be because of the music I listen to, the people I've heard them removing, they've all been black.
Or rappers, you mean?
Yeah, rappers, yeah.
Because, which, I naturally, I'm going to have an issue with that.
Right.
But no, like, seriously, I have an issue with that.
Yeah.
Because, like, I grew up listening to rock music before I ever got into rap. And not that I have to tell you, but let me tell you, there are a whole lot of problematic rock singers.
Yeah.
With all sorts of issues ranging from racism to sexual assault. So, like, get them out of there, too. By the way, I don't think that they are going to remove anyone else. I think that they gave up. Because a whole lot of people were asking them questions like, well, are you going to remove Eminem's music? Are you going to get rid of Guns N' Roses? Like,
fucking Ted Nugent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like,
Definitely
he's just fucking awesome. Awful.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I was getting at. I was like, there are so many people who, like, musicians who are just like fucking awful people. And if that was a campaign they were going to do, then they got to do a lot more work than what they did. Side note, fuck R. Kelly. Black folks.
Absolutely.
Jeez, like, black folks, just stop defending R. Kelly. R. Kelly can't be, like, no one is more blatant with their bullshit than R. Kelly. Like, R. Kelly wears, like, the fucked up stuff he does on his sleeve. And, man, like all he has to do is release a gospel album and black folks are fine with it. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame.
We seem to, within black culture, sometimes we have an issue with preserving the wrong things and wrong people while simultaneously passing up on the right things and right people. And I don't get that at all. Like, I don't get holding on to R. Kelly and Bill Cosby, but then fighting to be included in white spaces to the point that the only time, well, not the only time, but there are times where black business seems to get like secondhand promotion. Like, well, since Starbucks doesn't like us, now we should check out these black owned like coffee shops. I don't like that.
It's because black mainstream success makes people to black people makes them untouchable, especially when it comes to black straight men. If you are an uber successful, and not just in the black community, but in society overall, if you're a successful black straight man, then you are untouchable. It doesn't matter what you do, you are untouchable. And anytime anyone calls any kind of your behavior out, it's not a hey, you're doing something bad, you need to be held accountable. It's you're attacking this person because they're black. And not only black, but a quote-unquote strong black male. especially with the conviction of Cosby in this past like months, and like the R. Kelly, the campaign to remove R. Kelly. I've been having a lot of conversations with people where, especially black people, where they've done everything in their power to justify the really terrible things that these guys have been doing, and they're justifying them purely because they're successful straight black males. And I mean, I even had a quote unquote friend who they weren't really that great of a friend in the first place, but literally justify pedophilia by saying teenagers are adults.
What?
Yeah. We were talking about R. Kelly, and it came up like he was on video having sex with an underage person. And tell you, that's it. 15-year-olds are not adults. Teenagers are not adults. And this person tried to argue me down that, well, teenagers can talk like adults and they can have sex, so they might as well, they're adults.
A fun fact, there's actually a term for adults who prey on teenagers, if you didn't know. It's called, gosh, I think it's like hebephilia or something like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that person's like super wrong.
Yeah. Once again, I got rid of that person, and this person I've known for years, and I was just like, especially like, dude, you have children, and I don't think you would be okay that if a 40-year-old man you caught your 14-year-old daughter having sex with a 34-year-old man, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have a problem. I'm pretty sure you would have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure you would go and try to charge that person, have that person charged with a crime because they committed a crime.
What they did was a crime, yeah.
But you want to defend this activity because this is somebody you look up to, and that's a problem. Oh, Ash, I also want to say something else back on the Drake thing. One of the funniest things I've seen today, somebody had posted to all the people who are crushing on light-skinned dudes right now, take your shot because they're vulnerable. Their queen has been taken down.
That was me who put.
That was you? Holy shit!
Yes, it was.
See, since your return, you have looted my timeline on Facebook.
Yes,
just polluted it, and I don't know who's posting what anymore.
Yes,
It's to the point, at least on my timeline, where I saw this funny thing. Was it Rico or Ash?
Having the same damn issue
because y'all are blowing up my timeline. It's
oh
ridiculous.
My god!
When I returned, I came back the day before Afropunk premiered my song, and that just kind of like blew everything back up.
Yeah.
And I know, of course, you had to go do your thing elsewhere, but I'm glad to have you back active and stuff, mostly because social media was my only way of being in contact with you.
And you should have said something. I had like 5 different ways to get in touch with them. Oh well, hindsight.
Well, but yeah, so thank you for that earlier. With Drake being the queen of the light skins.
I believe in Drake.
I have my own issues with Drake, but mostly just for silly reasons. Like, I have no serious problems with Drake. Like, nothing serious.
My issues with Drake 100% revolve around how often he rhymes a word to the same word. Like,
True.
That's lazy. Be
I mean,
less lazy.
Lil Wayne used to do it a lot too.
I don't want to. All I can say is that with some rappers, when you hear that type of rhyme scheme, usually it's not about the last word. Like the rhyme is usually the phrasing, not so much like the last word they say. Yeah. And then like when you listen to it from that perspective, it'll make a lot more sense, and you'll be less annoyed.
That's fair.
There's some rappers that are good at that.
My only issue with my only like somewhat real issue with Drake is sometimes he comes off as creepy.
He is. He can be.
Yeah. It's just like he seems like one of those dudes that like you would go out with once and maybe have a good time, but you don't really want to make a thing, but he wants to make it a thing, and he'll call and like text, "Hey baby, how you doing? How you feeling today? Can I get you something?" Like I'm at work. Like I feel like he's clingy.
I've heard this too.
Yeah, and it sometimes comes across in his music, and it makes me feel weird listening to it. Just like I don't know if I should be. I don't know if I should be support. I feel like I feel like for the woman in your life, I need to tell you to back off. Like I want to be Drake's friend, but I want to be that friend who goes, "Hey, dude, I think we should just think you should just come out and not do what you're doing right now. Let's back it up a bit."
Songs like Hotline Bling are definitely something else.
Yeah. So, Ash, who are you listening to right now? Like right now?
Let's see. I am an eclectic individual with an eclectic palette. So, like right now, I am currently fully immersed in the new Black Thought and Ninth Wonder EP.
I listened to that too.
It is the complete and total antithesis of what is happening right now in pop culture, hip hop. I don't know. It blew me away. Also, there's a singer by the name of Raven Lene who's pretty good. Violence and Monica Martin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Monica Martin. She's the lead singer from that band Folks. It's like PHOX. I mean, PHOX. But they're on hiatus. So she's been singing with this dude Violence. And they're pretty amazing together. There's a song called Awake and Pretty Much Sober that I listen to every single day. I listen to Dolly Parton a lot. She's a pretty good songwriter.
Hey, everybody. I don't care who you are. Everybody got to give respect to Dolly.
That is true.
No, she's a great songwriter. She seems to be a non-problematic white person, and she gave Elvis the middle finger back in the day.
Yep.
Because he really tried to play her. So.
It would hurt my heart a bit if some fucked up shit came out about Dolly Parton. Wouldn't hurt my heart. Wouldn't hurt my heart too much, but it would hurt me just a little bit because they were like, "Oh shit."
Also, her charity is really great.
Also true.
She has a charity where if you sign up for it, so people who have small children, you sign up for this charity and then they will send you a free book every month for the first 5 years of your child's life.
That is amazing.
That's
Right?
awesome.
To encourage, God damn it. Sorry. To encourage parents to like read to their kids. Like they take away that hurdle of I don't have any books to read to my kids. Well, now you do.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Shout out to Dolly.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. Any other recommendations?
Recommendations. I didn't know I was recommending.
No,
stuff.
I mean, well, you know what I'm saying. Like, see, I hope see what the hope is. Our listeners hear what you listen to and be like, oh, well, Ash is cool. So we'll go.
I don't know if they'll feel that way. I would recommend there's a band, and they've been around since forever, possibly since before I was born, and I'm getting up there. But they're still pretty active, and they're called Deerhoof.
Excellent.
They are amazing, and they make amazing music, and their lead singer is like this adorable Japanese woman who sings in this adorable accent, and like things that shouldn't sound cool when she sings them. What else? Goodness, I listen to way too much music.
I mean,
I definitely recommend that Black Thought and Ninth Wonder project. But if you're not feeling rap or Deerhoof, I don't really know how to like describe their genre of rock. They're just everything.
Yeah.
Definitely Violence, like Violents, and Monica Martin. You won't regret that.
All right. See now, I got more music to go check out.
Yeah, that's really what Keem was fishing for. Is like, I want more music.
I have been on a major music kick. I've just been grabbing stuff. You can ask Ez. I've been sending music constantly.
Yes,
that
true.
I've discovered,
including at times that I have no way of listening to it.
True.
And I've gotten
like Fantastic Negrito. Actually, I've been really enjoying DJ Jazzy Jeff's new work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because Jazz is still killing it. I've just been consuming music like nobody's business. So I'm trying to help our listeners out to get me music. Also, maybe benefiting myself.
If you follow me on Instagram, I usually do like a daily playlist thing. And if you follow me on Facebook, it's been requested of me to do like a weekly hip hop thing. So like you can pretty much find out what I'm listening to through those two mediums. Yeah.
See, I will further that request on Facebook, so I don't have to set up an Instagram account because I've been avoiding it for years now. So yeah, I'll keep a lookout on Facebook. Is there anything else? Ez, you got something?
No, I don't have anything.
See, I've gone through my prepared questions.
We're right about at an hour, so that works out.
Ash, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say happy Pride. Well, I guess I am adding something. Yes. I just want to once again wish everyone happy Pride Month. This is our time we should come together all throughout the year, but like this is our month. And one thing that I do want to say, stop invalidating ACEs. They are also a part. And, we've all heard the whole, oppressed becoming the oppressor. And I'm not saying it's to that extent, but like, come on, like if our whole thing is that, we don't want cisheads attacking us for who we are and our identities, then like we can't attack aces for, you know, who they are and what they're not doing. That's not very fair. Because at the end of the day, they don't fall under that heteronormative spectrum. Normative.
Yeah,
Y'all get the point.
normative. Yeah. Right. Like you see so way too often, right? The argument that ace people aren't actually part of this like LGBT umbrella, except that their sexuality is policed just as heavily under heteronormative society as any gay or lesbian or bisexual or whatever person, right? Their sexuality is policed just as heavily. So why aren't they? Like, why not include them? They are part of this.
You know, my best friend deals with this on the daily. I've had to be there and wipe those tears because people ask her questions, you know, like, well, what's wrong with you? Are you sure you're not a lesbian? Maybe you just haven't had the right guy. Instead of just accepting the fact that that's just who she is. And there are some people on this planet that just aren't into it. It's just not for them. So I want us to have like a great Pride Month. So like, I want to establish that. And then Juneteenth is coming up, and I just want to remind non-Black people to be wary of your criticisms within spaces that center around Black people, especially when you're criticizing the quote-unquote woke circles. Be wary of that, because you may inadvertently you may say some things or imply some things that could potentially be anti-Black, and we don't want that. No more than we want, or I want my fellow Black people to also be very conscious of. But like, one of my producers is Filipino, and we had been spending a lot more time together, especially when I was down in Miami, and it was like the first time I really got a chance to see some of the nuances and microaggressions that Asian Americans deal with, and even some of the things that I was doing that I didn't realize was problematic. And it just got me thinking about everything, because I'm weird like that. Like, I'm the type of person, like when I was in Australia, I spent 8 hours researching the history of like Jewish oppression. And then I spent like the next 8 hours sobbing because I'm like, sheesh, I didn't realize that there are a lot of anti-Semitic things that I had been perpetuating and didn't even realize that they were anti-Semitic. You'd be surprised. I actually recommend everybody research that stuff. But yeah,
That's I will say that's a thing that we often get so swept up in identity politics that we forget that other people are experiencing oppression as well, and sometimes we're the ones that are doing it because we're part of the society. We are part of the society of oppression. Sometimes even when we are being oppressed ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and there's this terrible idea that goes around that if you are oppressed in one way, that means that you're immune somehow to being oppressive to other communities, right? And that's why we get such rampant racism in, especially in gay culture, right? Specifically gay male culture, right? Or those spaces, extremely anti-Black, and nobody, like, so few people realize it because they're like, well, I can't be racist because I'm gay. Like, no, that's not how that works, actually.
Okay, before we go and before we get off this, can I be mad about something, please?
Absolutely.
I would be alarmed if you weren't.
So, yesterday, a Facebook friend of mine, of course, straight Black guy, says, so, when is Straight Pride Month? Since apparently since we don't get a month. And my reply was, I said Straight Pride Month is exactly the same at the same time as White Pride Month, every single damn day. And the continued replies were, well, the difference is I can't rub my skin off, and I'm oppressed because of it. And my reply was just like, you're oppressed because of the color of your skin, and they're oppressed because of their sexuality. It's still oppression. They're still erased, just like you're being erased for your skin. They're being erased for their sexuality. Just as you want to be proud and take pride in being black, they want to take pride in being in part of their community too. Yeah. And it's very hypocritical for you to go, they shouldn't get this, but I should. Because you're both being oppressed. And in most cases, being oppressed by the same people.
Yep.
And this person's reply was, well, I mean, I don't think there should be a Black History Month either. Mm-hmm. And I went, all right, I'm done with you. I'm out. We're finished here. It's not a competition. Oppression is not a competition. You can't weigh your suffering or what you have to deal with against what others have to deal with, especially when you're being oppressed by the same people.
Yeah.
And you also can't be a tool of oppression towards other people if you're being oppressed. Like if you're an oppressed group. Because that's not right. You don't get to oppress others because you're oppressed. Like I've been on a whole, like, back on the canceling thing. I've been canceling in the quote unquote pro-black circles, all the pro-black people who immediately become homophobic. They become like misogynistic. Anyone who does that, you're done. Like you don't. For me, you don't get to be pro-black anymore because you're not accepting of all the black people in your community. Miss me with that bullshit. I'm sorry. That was a little segue. I apologize for that. We're gonna bring into this. Ash, plug your projects that are coming up
and tell us where to find you.
Howdy, I am Ash Leon, also known as Ash Leon, depending on what social media source you're using, since special characters aren't always available, apparently. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at AshLeon901. I have a very unapologetic, deeply socio-political track on the way, as well as some visuals for Big Dipper style. And if we're lucky, we might get a full project this month. Also, the video for Big Dipper style was shot by a queer woman. She is a rapper who goes by the stage name Jamie Cornelia. And I don't have her handles right now, but I promise.
Send them to me and we'll put them in the show notes.
Yes. She's amazing. She's amazing. Like, she raps, she plays instruments, she does graphic design, she shoots videos.
Sounds like somebody we have on the show.
You should, because she does this all while navigating as a queer black woman. And as a matter of fact, I think she has something going on for Pride. Like, she's performing at a huge festival. So, like, she'd be a great guest, and she makes great music.
Very nice. Very nice. Well,
and that's all I got.
Well, we were glad to have you on. I don't know if you're sticking around for the sex segment, but if you do, hey, feel free to. But it was like I said, a pleasure as always to have you on. We got to get together soon, like for real this time, because I've said this before. But yeah, like I said, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we're going to have more music from Ash, and then onward to the sex segment. Enjoy.
Touch the particles in space, feel the matter shifting into place, floating through the darkness, call it grace. Bow your head and nod to the bass. Heart beating like an 808, star bound right up out the gate, supernova blowing up my fate. Instead I swear these haters cannot take. Tell me who the hell do you think you are? I can pierce the heavens with these goddamn bars. Impossible? I go beyond, hyperdrive in the XLR. Megas if you ain't catch that bar, I'm the captain now, call me Young Picard. We gon' take flight, we gon' take flight, we gon' take flight, we gon' take flight. Ship's name is Wednesday, no losing, we big slay, we soaring, we cruising, we touring, perusing this system, enduring this journey, we moving like comets, no worries, we got this, can't stop it, 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 can't stop it.
And welcome to the sex segment for this week. So our sex topic today came from a listener question on Facebook. Somebody who asked about more information about what queer sex is, and what sex can be for somebody who experiences dysphoria with regards to their genitals, which I am not qualified to speak on, right? Because I'm non-binary, I do experience a little bit of dysphoria, but most of the dysphoria that I experience is social dysphoria. So it doesn't have to do with my body itself. It has to do with the ways that people perceive my gender because of what my body looks like. Like when I'm all by myself, very rarely do I experience any dysphoria that's caused by my body itself. So I am not qualified to speak on how sex is different when you're experiencing dysphoria with regards to your genitals or other parts of your body that are involved in the way that you have sex. So that being said, if somebody is listening and would like to come on and talk about their experiences with that kind of dysphoria, please get in touch with us, because we would love to be able to share that kind of information, and to put that out there and to let you share your story through this forum. But so I can't talk about that, but I can talk about what queer sex is, or what it means when I talk about queer sex.
Which is topical considering it's Pride Month.
Yes, exactly.
Once again.
Exactly. Happy June. Let's talk about queer sex. And so somebody I spoke with last night put it really nicely that heterosexual sex has a script, right? Like what most people consider sex, like there is a very clear script to be followed that's presented in all kinds of media for us, right? You, man and woman, get together, They're instantly attracted. They tear each other's clothes off, and then the penis goes in the vagina, and both people experience the same level of pleasure for the entirety of that sexual experience, and then they both come and then they're done. Or he comes and she doesn't, but that's okay because she doesn't really need to, and then they're done, right? Which is kind of messed up, right? Like, in what possible world would you expect two people to get exactly the same level of pleasure out of a single thing?
I can say that has never happened.
Right.
That script is bullshit.
I know. And then once you start having sex, you kind of figure out that that's not the way that it works. But even people who have figured out that, like, oh, people with vaginas need other kinds of stimulation if they're going to have an orgasm, typically, right? Some people can come from penetration, but it's pretty rare. But like, even once you have like gained a little experience and figured out what that is, like, the idea is still there. Like, heteronormative sex is still very, very much focused on PIV, right? To the point where I've spoken with grown-ass men who are otherwise, like, very caring, considerate people who still talk about everything except PIV as foreplay. I mean, we've talked about this, right? Like oral sex is just foreplay, right? Fingering is just foreplay. You break out the toys, it's just foreplay, and it's just something that you do until you get to the quote-unquote main event. Right? And so, this is a whole rant against heteronormative sex. I'm sorry, this is not what I meant this to be. But, like, queer sex is contrasted with heteronormative sex, right? And so let's talk about that instead of ranting against heteronormative models of what sex is. Let's talk about what queer sex actually is. So when we're talking about what queer sex is, the first thing that I mean when I talk about that is that, and I guess this kind of feeds into everything, right? Into everything that I'm going to talk about after this, is that you're focused on, both people are focused on what actually feels good instead of what you think is supposed to feel good. And that leads to all sorts of, that opens the door to all sorts of things that a lot of really, like, masculine men especially think that they shouldn't like, right? Like, there's this still this idea that straight guys don't like anal stimulation. Well, sorry, that's not true, right? That can feel good for anybody. Or, like, that opens the door, right? Like, once you say, oh, I should or I shouldn't like this, then you're closing the door on a whole lot of things that could feel good, right? So paying attention to what actually feels good for you instead of what you think is supposed to feel good, or limiting yourself to things, like not doing things that feel good because you're not supposed to like them. Like, that's one of the biggest things that I mean when I talk about what queer sex is, right? You're getting rid of the script.
I'm sorry, I'm a little silly today. I was gonna make a joke, but because when you were talking about the anal stimulation, and then immediately went into closing the door. I was like,
ha 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 ha! You're funny.
I
am. I did not mean that, but Keem has a terrible brain for jokes.
I do.
Anyway, so that's really that's the number one thing that I mean when I talk about what queer sex is and what that means to me. And that kind of feeds into a lot of the other stuff that I mean when I talk about queer sex. So another important thing, and this I have not. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So the next one is not exclusive to queer sex, but you find its opposite more often in heteronormative sex models, in the heteronormative script, right? Like, I've had sex with plenty of, like, cis heterosexual dudes, even while I was identifying as a cis woman, right? Who, like, this was definitely part of the sex that we had, which is being open to giving pleasure consecutively, not concurrently, right? So first it's my turn and then it's your turn, rather than, oh, we should do one thing that causes us both all the pleasure, because that thing probably doesn't exist. And if you think that it does, I'm not saying one of you is lying or like faking it or whatever, but it's possible, right? Because very rarely can two people, it's pretty rare for two people to both reach orgasm from the same act, right? It's not impossible, but it's rare and it's tricky.
Most people don't take the same road to get to the same destination.
Exactly, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying, please don't think that I'm saying that there's something wrong with that, because there's not, right? Which is why a feature of queer sex is that concurrent pleasure, right? Like, I most of the time would rather, like, sometimes it's fun, right? To like do the same, like, fucking is fun. I don't know if you know, right? Sometimes it's fun to do that, but to have the expectation that both people are going to come from one thing is pretty, like, that's not super ideal. But to, like, say, okay, first, like, I'm going to keep doing this thing to you because you're making great sounds, and don't worry about whether or not I am receiving tons of physical pleasure in my, like, genitals from this act, because I'm not, but the sounds that you're making are really incredible and I want to keep making you make those sounds, right? So, like, for some reason, a lot of people have it, and I mean, I still run into this too sometimes, but you think that unless both people's genitals are being stimulated, that, like, that's a bad thing, but it's not, right? It's not at all, right? You can totally have awesome sex even if only one person is being stimulated, at least, like, physically, like that, right? Because that's, I mean, like, let's do that. Let's open that up. I do that frequently in the sex that I have, right? Like, let me get you off, and then you'll get me off, and it will be amazing, and we will both have an incredible time.
And also kind of goes back to the conversation we had a long back. We had a long way back about people who find it difficult to orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have the concept that, oh, we got to do the same things, like, we got to do the same thing, we got to be stimulating the same things at the same time to get where we're going.
Yeah.
For people who find it difficult to orgasm, you can't do that. Like, because it's already difficult. Like, it's already very difficult. And they have to be able to find the ways specifically to get them there. And more than likely, it's not going to be, of course, the same thing that you need to get there.
Yeah.
Because it's, like I said, it's already difficult. So, yeah, sorry.
No, that's exactly right. And that actually leads into the next thing that I was going to talk about, right? Which is that in the queer sex that I have, and part of what I mean when I talk about that is decentering of orgasm and decentering of like PIV, right? I guess that's two different things. Okay, so let's talk about decentering of orgasm, right? Because, like you mentioned, for some people, for a variety of different reasons, orgasm can be really difficult, right? And that's not to say that, like, orgasm isn't fun and great and like that, right? Like, orgasms are great. I think that we can pretty much universally agree that orgasms are great, but not everybody wants that to be considered the goal of sex, right? Because maybe you have an extremely difficult time orgasming. Maybe, like, I don't know. There's all sorts of different things, reasons that might not be something. Like, I have a difficult time orgasming the first few times that I'm with somebody, and there are so many people who are like, they want to like prove themselves and be like, well, I'm going to make you come because blah, 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 blah. Like, it's a point of pride for them. And I'm like, okay, but now the pressure is on, right? Like, now you're pressuring me to experience my sexuality for you. And I'm like, that's not actually, first off, that's not how this works. Like, please do not ask me to perform some aspect of my sexuality for you because of your pride. But also, like, if you expect that of me, like, the higher that, then there's pressure, and more pressure is going to make it harder for me to come, not easier. Right? But there's still this thing, like, this point of pride, like, cis male, like, masculinity, cis het masculinity has evolved, right? For a while, it was, oh, women don't come, or they don't need to come, or they can't come, or whatever, right? Like, women don't need that. And so, like, why bother? And then now it's kind of, the script has kind of evolved to where, like, it's like, if a heterosexual, like, they've evolved to the point where, like, now women can come and they like it, and we should, and if we're good, respectful men, we should be able to make them come. Like, but now, like, that got twisted in this little cauldron of masculinity to where there's something wrong with you if you can't make a woman come, right? Like, you should, again, there's that word should, you should make a woman come, right?
I will say that also works both ways, because for men, at least in my experience, it's thought of as being easy for you to come.
Mm-hmm.
And people will take it very, 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 very personally if you don't.
Yes.
And I've had to have conversations more than I thought I ever would with someone being extremely upset that they couldn't, quote unquote, make me come.
Yeah. And right, like, and this feeds back in again to my first point, which is focus on what feels good instead of what you think should feel good, right? Like, for all kinds of people, right? For cis men, it can be difficult to navigate around that, right? To not being able to orgasm. For women, for all kinds of people. For all kinds of people, there's any number of reasons why you might have difficulty orgasming, but that doesn't mean that sex doesn't feel good.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't mean that you don't want to have sex just because you can't orgasm, right? It means that you need to shift your priorities away from, like, thinking of orgasm as the end result. Like, this is the goal of having sex, right? No, the goal is to make each other feel good in whatever ways you want to feel good, right? And you need to focus on what specific acts actually feel good to you rather than what you think should feel good. Like, did I just repeat myself? I might have just repeated myself. I'm rambling a little bit. I got distracted by a really sad story that I read there was an Ask Women thread on Reddit the other day that was, and I don't even know why I clicked on it because I hate gossip, but it was like, tell me stories of, like, things that things about your friend's sex life that they don't want people to know. And it was super anonymous, like, nobody used names or anything. And I'm like, I don't even know why I clicked on it. But the one of the top stories when I clicked on it was my friend and her husband haven't had sex in 5 years because he has ED. And I'm like, I don't understand, because there's so many ways, and this is now getting into my last point, because there's so many ways to have sex that don't require an erect penis. Right. And that's my last point, right? Which is decentering of PIV, right? And that's like, and you hear this all the time in like these jokes of these ignorant like cis het dudes and all sorts of people who are like, wait, but you're two women, right? There's no penis. How do you have sex? Like, you have sex, right? Like, I don't ask about your sex life, right? Stop being rude. But yeah, like move beyond PIV as what you consider sex. And we touched on this in the I Hate Foreplay episode, right? Where I think that foreplay as a concept should just like disappear from our cultural narrative, because like if you are doing things to each other with the intention of having sex, guess what? Like you're having sex. Right? Like, oral sex is sex. Like touching each other's bodies to increase like sexual arousal, that's sex. In my opinion, this is my definition of sex, right? Which is, if you agree that you're having sex, like you're gonna have sex, the sex starts even well before you take your clothes off, right? In my opinion, you can have sex with your clothes on. You can have sex. There's so many things. There's so many things to do, right? Any stimulation of each other, like with the intention of causing sexual pleasure, that's sex. Right? And that answers the question of how do two women have sex with each other, right? Because everything that they're doing to each other's bodies to have sex, to create sexual pleasure, is sex. How do two men have sex? Two men can have sex without any penetration being involved at all, right? Because anything that you're doing to each other to cause that pleasure is sex. That's how I feel about that, right? Like PIV is not the main event, because there's so much other stuff that like, it's just one more thing that you can do. It's one way that you can have sex.
This actually reminds me. I don't know if we talked about it on the show, the DJ Khaled thing. Did we talk about this?
I don't think that we talked about that. Most people listening will at least be tangentially aware of it, but I don't think that we talked about it.
So, for those of you who don't know, a few weeks ago now, the music producer DJ Khaled put this. I think it was somebody on like Twitter or Instagram or one of those social media things that I don't use. Like posted something about, like asked him something about him and his wife's sex life, and it came down to oral sex, and his reply was, "I don't do that. A king receives, he doesn't like. A king receives, he doesn't give," or something like that. And it caused a whole just like firestorm of comments of people replying, from Smash Mouth going, like the band Smash Mouth going, like going at him for just like, dude, I don't think you understand the importance of oral sex. And The Rock just giving like all kind of peeks into him and his wife's sex life, and it was a whole thing of just like DJ Khaled being just dragged for going, "I don't do oral sex because that's not how sex is supposed to be, because I'm a king," quote unquote.
And here's the thing, right? This is in his defense, not that in his defense, nobody should be shamed or coerced into performing a sex act that they don't want to do.
Right.
That being said, his logic is real shitty. Right? His logic sucks.
Your logic is dangerously flawed.
Yeah, but also if he doesn't want to perform oral sex, okay. Right? Don't try to shame him into doing it because that's coercive. And
That's
coerced sex is non-consensual.
I'm just saying, you know, in all his songs, he goes, "We the best." You ain't the best. Can't be the best. You need to retake your claims.
Yeah.
Another one.
But in any case.
Oh my God. But yeah. That it?
So that's basically like the summary of what I've gotten to, right? Which is like what I mean when I talk about queer sex is pay attention to what actually feels good instead of what you think is supposed to feel good. What all the points did I make? Pay attention to what actually feels good. What was the second one?
Decentralized orgasms.
That was the third one. Yeah, but like don't deprioritize, but like decentralize orgasm as the goal. Concurrent, not consecutive, right? Like be open to giving pleasure without actively receiving any back, right? Don't think that both parties or all parties, right? Because we had a whole episode about threesomes, right? Don't think that everybody in that situation has to be actively receiving pleasure in order for that to be satisfying sex. Decentralize orgasm as the goal of sex, and decentralize PIV. Like take that off the pedestal as the end all be all of what sex is. Like open up your definition of what sex is. Let that be what it means to you, right? Let that include all of the acts that you do.
And I will add, always be reminded that the world of sex is, one, incredibly large and incredibly varied, and two, sex, just like everything else in society and everything else in this world, evolves and changes. If you have an idea of if your ideas of what constitutes like sex are concrete, just bear in mind that they're not as concrete as you think they are.
Yeah.
I mean, before the World War I and World War II, oral sex in America wasn't really a thing. Like, it was not something that was common, at least. It was a deviant act, a quote-unquote deviant act. For the longest time, any position in PIV that wasn't missionary was a deviant act. Like, sex has changed so much. What's considered sex has changed so much. So our ideas of sex also change personally. So just keep that in mind. Like, do what makes you feel good consensually.
Yes. Find the overlap in what makes you feel good. And before we totally go, first off, I wanted to point out, like, you may have noticed in my definition of queer sex, like, that's not, like, you don't have to consider yourself queer to have queer sex, apparently, in my definition, right? Like,
it seems like your definition is the more traditional, like, dictionary definition of queer.
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
Right. Like,
in this case,
anybody who has sex with me is, first off, like, I'm going to follow my rules of what sex is, because, like, this what I just defined as queer sex, like, that's the kind of sex that I like to have, but also I am non-binary, and so anybody who has sex with me is having sex with a queer person. So you're having some queer sex, is what I'm saying, if you're having sex with me. But the things that I talked about as, like, what I define as queer sex. And if you have a different definition, if queer sex means something different to you, please share, because I am not an authority on this. This is just my perspective and my opinion. Like, please share your opinions with me. But these 4 things that I talked about, these are not, like, cis heterosexual couples can do this, but it requires breaking out of the heteronormative script of what sex is in this country. And that's, in my opinion, that's what makes it queer, right? Queer has a lot of definitions in our language right now, right? It can refer to a lot of different things, but one of the things at the core of what queer is not quote unquote normal, right? It's not normative. And so I think that, like, even cis heterosexual people, if they are breaking the normative mold of what society says they should be doing for sex, they can absolutely have queer sex, right? Because they are intentionally breaking down society's norms about their sexuality. So why the fuck not? Straight people can be queer too. Or straight people can have queer sex. And before we go, unless Keem has something else to add.
I have nothing else to add.
Okay. I'm going to put forth a couple of resources. Full disclosure, I have not yet read these. I do have a copy of one of them that I lent out before I read it, which is always a mistake. And the other one I am going to be picking up this summer to read. But these are guides that have been written, and these are, again, not comprehensive. These are just 2 that I happen to know about, that I thought I'd pass on if people have not heard of them. One of them is specifically focused on sex with people who have vulvas, and the title of it is Girl Sex 101. And it is written as a guide for people who want to be able to pleasure people who have vulvas. The original edition of it was very like cis normative, but it's written by Allison Moon, and she did an update on it a couple years ago, and added sections and added more information about how to have sex with trans people who have vulvas. And so it's become much more, she heard that criticism and made it much more inclusive. So I have a copy of it. I need to get it back from the person I lent it to so that I can read it. But it comes to me very highly recommended by somebody who is extremely good at having sex with a person who has a vulva, if I do say so. So Girl Sex 101 by Allison Moon. It's interesting because it's written in a graphic novel format, partly. So there's a lot of visual to it. And the other one that I'm going to be picking up this summer is a zine that was published like 8 years ago by Mira Bellwether, and it's called Fucking Trans Women. And it's partially sex education, and partially like a guidebook to how to have sex with trans women, specifically with trans women who have not had any sort of gender affirmation surgery on the bottom, like no genital affirmation surgery. Sorry, I just fucked up all my terminology there. I'm sorry. But so that's a lot of information, like a lot of information about how hormones change the sexual response in trans women, and different ways of having sex with trans women who may experience dysphoria with regards to their genitals, and how to have sex with them in ways that feel affirming for that. Like I said, I can't speak to that kind of dysphoria, but this is a resource for people who do experience that kind of dysphoria. So if you are currently having sex or are considering having sex with a trans woman and want more information about it, or if you are a trans woman and have not yet come across this resource, check it out. It, by all accounts, is extremely good. And like I said, I'm going to be picking it up this summer so that I can do so that I can do some reading there. But like I said, if you have, I think I'm going to leave it there. So if you have any questions, or if you want to add something to this discussion, please, like I said, I am not an authority. I am not the final voice on this. This is just my opinion, and I'm really good at rambling about my opinion for half an hour. But please, if you think that I'm egregiously wrong about something, or you want to build on something, or you want to offer a different perspective, let us know. Join in the conversation. Hit us up on Facebook. We definitely welcome that. If you have other questions or suggestions about things that you would like to hear my perspective on, things that you would like to hear me ramble on, please let us know also. The last few episodes have come from listener suggestions and suggestions from friends of the show on Facebook. So please let me know what you want to hear me ramble about. And also, like I said at the beginning of this episode, this topic was brought up specifically by somebody asking about how to have queer sex with when you're experiencing dysphoria with regards to your genitals, which I cannot speak on. But if you experience that and would like to help out and share your experience and talk about that experience, let us know. Even if you just want to write in something and we could read it on the show. If you just want to share that experience with us, reach out, let us know. So yeah, that's my end. That's my end. I'm done.
All right.
Sorry.
And that looks like it's the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
As always, special thanks to the Living Room Leftists for providing us with theme music.
Yay.
Special thanks for Ash for joining us today and providing us with music. Guys, go check out Ash's latest releases.
Ash is great.
And stay on the lookout for the future projects and future releases. It's going to be a wild ride, and encourage y'all to get on it. So once again, special thanks to Ash. As always, we invite people to send us questions, talk to us. If you want to be on the show, hey, let us know. We're happy to have you on. If you want to come talk to us in the Discord, our Discord is up. We try to put that in the description. It's also on our Facebook page. We're also going to have other things happening this summer that you guys should be looking forward to.
Yes.
I think next week's episode should be pretty good if we get to talk about what I think we're talking about.
Also, next week's episode, we'll see how this goes, but it might be late. Because I'm going to be traveling in New York with Keem.
So, yeah. Next week's episode,
we may not have our editing.
Yeah, it might come later. It might definitely come later.
We'll see. I'll try to get my recording set up, my traveling setup, taken care of before we go, so that we can take care of this with as little interruption as possible.
Right. Though we have done it before.
It is true.
Yeah, but we'll see.
But we weren't Skyping anybody in when we did that.
True. But either way, should be very interesting when it does come out. So be on the lookout for that. Like we said, maybe a little late, but should be very interesting. I'm trying to think, is there anything else?
I don't think so.
Links to news stories, we'll try to get it to you in the description. As always, happy Pride. The show is already almost always supportive and everything, but put it out there, and you should also probably expect Pride related stuff this month. Mm-hmm. It's generally what we tend to do when these months pop up. So be on the lookout for more Pride stuff, and hey, we love you. and just we love you. You love you. Enjoy being yourself, and stay beautiful. I'm trying to think of anything else. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
No, I don't think you are. I think we got everything.
Any musicians who want to come on and talk or give us some of your music so we can play, or who want to suggest me music so I can listen to, please come on the show, or please contact us. We would love to have you. It also seems to be that my voice is starting to fade a bit, so that sounds like it's the end of the show.
Yeah.
So, as always, this has been Keem and Esme, and we are out.
But there are these things that matter, and they really fucking matter. There's like 4 things that matter, and they really fucking matter. I mean, objectively, I mean, you should care, especially you, if you thought about it for 5 fucking minutes.